and welcome to tonight's live. I am talking today about, does our past trauma link to our anxiety? What are the links between trauma and anxiety, and does our past affect us and cause us to feel anxious? This is such a big topic to take in and to process and to really work through, and I really want to give you some food to think about, and perhaps you can make a comment and let me know what resonates or what you've noticed thinking about this stuff, if you've got any links in your own personal experience. So first of all, I want to say that the unconscious mind runs our body, runs our life. Everything that we do, everything that we experience is all filtered through the unconscious mind. Our unconscious mind directs our emotions, our behaviors, our thoughts, our feelings. It's like the central operating thing. And the thing about unconscious mind is we are unconscious of what is going on there, what is programmed in. So the only way for us to know what is programmed into the unconscious or how it's operating and running our life is to look at what's in our life, what experiences we're having and what's not in our life. Now, how the unconscious gets programmed. So first of all, we need to understand that between the age of 0 and 7, we are just pure sponge programming, like we're just being programmed, not by us, but just by life itself and the people around us and the experiences we have and the meanings that we give to those experiences. But we have to remember, it's a little child giving those meanings. So it's not like an adult that's got perspective or can, look at things from different angles. It's a small child giving meaning to things. And as children, we are egocentric, which means everything that I go through is because of me, about me. I'm the center of the world. And so therefore, this just has a huge impact on how we get programmed. So the unconscious mind, how does the unconscious mind learn? It doesn't end when we're 7, keeps going. So our brain waves are very slow. When we're under 7, we're actually in a state of hypnosis. That's why children are so easily able to imagine and enjoy that imaginative play, which is so beautiful. Now, as we get older, we move out of imaginative play, and I'm sure you've seen this, that 12-year-olds kind of stop that play kind of thing and they start being more in a higher brainwave frequency and they're more in that operating thing. Now, coming into adulthood, again, we do dip in and out of trance on and off through the day, but we're primarily operating from, alpha, beta kind of brain waves, the faster brain waves. So it's much less easy to influence an adult than it is to influence a child and to change their unconscious programming. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not impossible to change our unconscious programming. We definitely can, and I do teach that in other talks. I won't go into it now, but one thing that I can tell you in this is that intense emotion tells our unconscious mind, this is important, you need to pick this up. So any event, situation or experience which is filled or hypercharged with intense emotion, things like fear, lack of safety, any negative experience, feelings of distress, that is going to be picked up by the unconscious mind. So intense emotion, especially negative emotion, amplifies the unconscious mind and the learnings, and then triggers our neuroreceptors to know in the future what situation, circumstance might cause a repeat of this to happen. And so that's where our safety-seeking mind, our unconscious, has one thing, one directive, one job, and that's to keep us safe. So it's going to pick up on those things. Anxiety essentially is, I'm not safe. So anxiety is about the fight and flight. So I'm not safe. Depression, on the other hand, is about being powerless. So it's still a lack of safety, because if you've got no power, you're not safe. Hopeless, defeated, powerless. It's that stage that we go in when we freeze. So anxiety, fight and flight. Depression is freeze. It's where you just give up and you're just, ready to die, basically, if you were an animal in essence, just looking at it from a purely animalistic point of view. Now, to give you an example of how our past trauma can affect us, with neuroception being the unconscious little triggers and things that we're not conscious of. Now, first of all, sometimes we are fully consciously aware of what it is that's triggering us. Now, I'll give you a story. So when I was 21, I did some telemarketing. Now, I was ringing people, cold calling people about, I think it was about roof restoration, or it might have been about something else. That I did a couple of different campaigns, but I remember this one time a man yelled at me. He yelled at me aggressively. He yelled at me angrily, and he said, how dare you call me? Who do you think you are, interrupting my day? This is my private number. This would have been before mobile phones as well. So I was calling his house line, and my whole body went into shaking. I couldn't speak, and I began, I hung up the phone, and I just cried and cried and cried, but not in a way that was sort of fitting the situation. It's where my emotional release, the trigger of the emotion, was out of proportion to the experience that I had. Like, a stranger yelled at me on the phone, yes, but the fact that it was a man and that I had experienced, yelling from my father as a child, like aggressive yelling, the trigger was there, and it then put me into that fight flight mode where I broke down. I was unable to continue because I'd been so badly triggered. But not all triggers are so obvious. So the unconscious mind is constantly sending out, feelers. It's got its little feelers out there always. And there are so many things that we respond to: scent, sound, sensation, or that gut sense, sight, being in a situation, any kind of stimulation. It could be a temperature, it could be like a breeze against our skin, it could be any kind of sensation, stimulation, a story. So for example, if I was listening to somebody talk and they had like a story about a particular thing, sometimes that story triggers people, and that's why we put trigger warnings when people are doing posts about things, because some people, if they read about a certain sensitive issue that they have experienced, it will trigger them. Sequences, like if this happens followed by that followed by this, my unconscious is just going to go boom, and I'm not going to know why, because I'm not going to, so someone put the kettle on and then the toast popped and then the radio played a particular song. I'm not going to know, because you'll be like, nothing happened, but your unconscious mind has got, some things in there that you're not aware of. Even like strategies. And we talk about in NLP, they talk about like strategies for everything, like a strategy to get out of bed, a strategy to buy something, a strategy, to make you go to the gym. First I think this, then I say this, then I see this, then I do that. And so if we carry out a certain strategy, that can be a trigger. And we're aware of some of our triggers, like I said, with the shouting, but we're not aware of those kind of neuroceptor things, those more subtle things where we may not be aware. And so that's why people are like, I don't know, nothing happened, and then suddenly I felt anxious. So an example of this is I was talking to a client, someone that I'm quite close to, that I know quite well, and they were telling me how they used to have panic attacks in the aisles of the supermarket. They were like, why do I get this anxiety, panic situation when I'm in the aisle of a supermarket? And there's someone outside with a baby. You can probably hear it. So what she had discovered, because she could never link it to anything, she loves shopping, and there was never any reason for her to feel that. But then at one point, she actually remembered that the very first time she had an epileptic fit, she was in a supermarket and she woke up in an ambulance. So one minute she was standing in a supermarket, she had an epileptic fit, and the next minute she woke up in, at an ambulance or in hospital or something. So even though nothing had actually happened to her, she hadn't, had anything where she remembered anything distressing, the fact is that her first experience of epilepsy was where one minute she was standing there and the next minute something had happened and she was no longer standing there and had found that she was in a medical situation. So once she realized that, then she could understand and then, address why this anxiety was coming from there. But it took, many, many years, and it wasn't until she was actually having a conversation with someone about her epilepsy and she went back and, reran that first thing, and she's like, oh, that's why supermarkets. But, the unconscious mind seeks the familiar, because if you think about it, familiar things are safe because you survived them. Now, where that confusion can come about is because we're programmed to seek the familiar, but some things that we have experienced in our past that are very, very familiar can not be so safe, or can be not in alignment with things that we want to lead us to bad. Like, we might be walking straight past big waving red flags because our nervous system is like familiar. And so that's kind of like where we can be misprogrammed. And you'll see this especially obvious when we have, like, say, for example, if you look at someone who attracts negative relationships, because if it's familiar to be overlooked, if it's familiar to have to, feel like you're walking on eggshells, or to putting yourself last, or having to accommodate others' emotions, or being hyper, vigilant, pleasing others for approval, if all that's familiar, then there's not going to be a red flag there. It's going to be, well, this is how I experience love, because in the past, those are all familiar things that I've had to do in relationships where I received love. So it's like the path to love is strewn with all these familiar things. We don't pick up the red flags. And then if we go into a relationship where those things don't exist, it's like there's something missing here. It's like, it's just, feels odd. Doesn't feel right. Maybe we're not connected. Maybe this isn't the right person for me, because I don't have to work really hard. I'm not having to please. And when I put myself first, it doesn't earn me anything. When I'm, overlooked, it doesn't earn me any, like all the things that have earned us something in the past aren't there anymore. And so it's like, how do I get love now? It doesn't feel right. So our threshold and our programming in our unconscious mind can actually be really, really way up, working against us. Even though it's, we've had to survive and we've managed to survive, it can be malprogrammed for what things that we really want to experience in our life, like safety and love and prosperity and friendship and enjoyment and reward and feeling worthy and happy and calm and all that kind of stuff. So the other extreme that we can do if we're not doing that, where we're not going past those red flags, is we can absolutely lose trust. Now, if you have lost trust with other people, it's likely that you also don't trust yourself, whether you're aware of it or not. And so when we don't trust ourselves, what happens is that we just want to avoid everything and everyone. So we become an avoidant personality. And that can look like withdrawal. It can look like I just don't like people. It can look like I want to move to the middle of nowhere. It can look like just shutting down, avoiding things, rejecting, pushing away, having that wall up. Or if you've ever met those people that can be quite harsh, where they almost like reject or push people away. It's like, why are you pushing me away? And it's all self-protecting behavior. And we can see that in people that we love and care about as well. So how do we disconnect these past traumas that are affecting our life, affecting our anxiety, and preventing us from happiness and calm? How do we let the unconscious know how to reset so that it will see the red flags, how to change our experience and calm our nervous system down? So the first thing is we need to get out of the past trauma cycle. And how we do that is we need to discharge our emotional charge that is trapped in our body and in our unconscious mind in relation to past events. Now, when I can always tell when something has emotional charge in it, because people will be stuck on it. Like, it'll be like that thing that people, my mother this, my mother never that, my father never this, my sister this, my, everyone I've ever loved this, my ex-husband that. That's one thing. And the other thing is that it can bring up emotion when you talk about it. Now, there is a complete sort of like another situation, which is where you've repressed the emotions so hard that you've switched off your emotions. That's where your unconscious has actually said it is not safe for you to feel. And so your emotions have essentially been iced out, frozen over, and it feels like you're numb and like there must be something wrong with me because I don't actually feel anything. And so my past doesn't upset me or worry me. It's not like it's just over, but it's at the expense of having to close up your heart. So you've actually got a wall around your heart, which then prevents you from having, depth and love and, stuff that you really want in the now, whether it's in relationship or in other kinds of things. So we discharge the emotion from past events. We let the unconscious mind know and the body know the past is over and you are safe now. And we put you back to a position of power over your life, your choice, your future, your emotions. And we do that safely without re-traumatizing. So if you have had situations in your past which have led you to feeling anxious today, or where you can see that there may be a connection with your safety circuitry being programmed by past events, then reach out, make a comment, put something in the chat there, and I would love to hear your story, and I would love to be able to connect with you and support you through your healing journey. That's what I'm all about. That's the most important thing that anyone can do for their future, for their children, for their family. Heal the past, and the present and future is forever changed. Have a fantastic evening. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to my channel. I would love to connect. Naomi Stockman from My Local Hypnosis.